It's actually happening as multiple new reports have dropped surrounding the Toronto Maple Leafs and their trade plans as it pertains to Brayden Schenn. We're going to break down these new reports and discuss what it means going forward, as this has Leafs fans fired up. Stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we get into it, if you're part of the 70% who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. You guys' support has been unbelievable, so thank you guys for that. And if you want to help us towards the goal of 15,000 subscribers, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot to go over today. Now, obviously, the big talk has been about the Leafs, whether it be Mikko Rantanen and Brayden Schenn. Trade rumors are going absolutely crazy. We had a ton of videos on it yesterday. It's just a very interesting time right now for Leafs fans and hockey fans in general because of the trade talks. We have some new updates as it pertains to Brayden Schenn, which some fans like the idea. Some fans certainly do not like the idea. So I'm curious to see what you guys' thoughts are. But it has dropped that Brayden Schenn appears to have emerged as the Leafs' top target ahead of the deadline. The cost for acquiring him is believed to be significant, potentially requiring their 2026 first-round pick alongside a top prospect. The Leafs may also need to send an additional pick as a sweetener to make the finances work for Schenn's contract. So, I mean, this is a very interesting one. I know you're going to have your thoughts on this, Darius. Let us know down below what your thoughts are as well. But it seems that the Leafs have zeroed in on Brayden Schenn.
Yeah, I mean, attaching a sweetener in this deal to acquire Brayden Schenn on paper just seems absurd. I'm sorry. When I see that, I'm like, that seems a bit ridiculous. But, if you really break it down, it could make some sense. Brayden Schenn used to play for Craig Berube. They won a Stanley Cup together, and he played really well in that, not only series, but in that entire playoff run. He's a great player that I think would absolutely help the Leafs. But if you look at the cap hit and you look at all these other intangibles, right? Like, not ideal. Certainly not ideal for Brayden Schenn. He makes $6.5 million. And, for the next couple of years as well, he does have terms. So the Blues would have to retain some, significant salary on him. And not just that, heading into the future, he is older, right? Like, I don't know if he's taking the reins away from John Tavares. I don't think he's as good as John Tavares. So you don't solve a problem there. You're adding to the team this year and I think could go on a deep playoff run, right? With a player like that. But anyway, it could make some sense. But I think that, trading a first round pick, a prospect, and a sweetener for Brayden Schenn for a couple more years of Brayden Schenn could be a bit ridiculous. But I do think he could have some use for this team if they can get away with maybe a first round pick. I'd rather trade away the first round pick than any prospects you already have because you know what you have in those prospects, right? In that way. So I think I would be okay with a first round pick. It would make sense. And then maybe like a B level prospect, retain some salary there. But I guess that might be wishful thinking on the Leafs side of things. But it sounds like it's a significant package because if you look on the St. Louis Blues side of things too, this is their captain. He's signed still for a couple years. Doesn't make sense to trade him, right? Like not too much sense, but they could trade him. So it's going to get very interesting as we head towards next week because it sounds like the Leafs are now front runners to acquire him.
Yeah, and they zeroed in on him. If you're unfamiliar with his stats this season, he's putting up a pretty good year. 34 points in 59 games. He's 33 years old. I mean, objectively, like he would help the team win this season. He's better than a lot of the options they would have right now. The problem is, like you mentioned, that cap hit is quite hefty, but it is intriguing as it pertains to making the finances work. You'd have to give up some players, maybe Max Domi's thrown in there, depending on how things work out there.
Right.
And I mean, Brayden Schenn in general, he is a very good player. He's played 1,000 NHL games, all these different things. And if they use their 2026 first round pick to acquire Brayden Schenn, and then they go out and they spend, like we had a video on that, I believe it was yesterday, about, of course, Fraser Minton, Easton Cowan. If they ship off a couple of those guys or one of those guys to get a higher end player, I'm not Mikko Rantanen and Dylan Cousins, someone of that nature, then you can maybe justify giving up your 2026 first-round pick for Schenn because then you have both Mikko Rantanen, just hypothetically, I don't know if they're actually going to get Mikko, but a player of that caliber, plus you have Brayden Schenn, and then your team's looking like the favorites to win it all. Even if you get a Brayden Schenn and a Scott Laughton, which is still a player of interest for the Leafs, the Flyers are reportedly asking for a first-round pick, which may be too steep. Like, at that point, would you rather trade your first-round pick for Scott Laughton or Brayden Schenn? That's the biggest question. I think for me, even with the cap hit, I'd rather Brayden Schenn.
I think I agree in that way. I think if you're looking at both players, and I think that the Leafs are probably going to end up acquiring the player that cost the least, right? If that makes sense. Although there are a lot of, intangibles in there that, Brayden Schenn, I think, brings to the table that maybe Scott Laughton couldn't, obviously winning pedigree, stuff like that. And he's played for Craig Berube before. So I think I would be, leaning on the side of Brayden Schenn. But again, that's $6.5 million. Maybe Max Domi. I thought that was a great point that you brought up, goes the other way, frees up some more salary cap. They don't have to retain 50%. Maybe the sweetener isn't as significant, something like that, that they can make it work. But when you look towards the future, I mean, the Leafs are not getting any younger by any means, right? But I guess they're trying to win right now, and that's the one thing we've been talking about. You have to go all in. So if you're looking at a move like this, I'm not a huge fan of the Brayden Schenn move, but I do believe that if they were to acquire him, all things equal, you're not, not looking at the salary cap, you're not looking 3 years from now, all that stuff. He does help them to win this year. I do believe that, but it's up to the players still. Nobody that they acquire. This is the other thing, Nick. Nobody that they acquire this year at this year's trade deadline is going to make that much of a difference. I think it's still going to fall on the shoulders of John Tavares, William Nylander, Austin Matthews, and Mitch Marner, of course, right? Like it's going to fall on their shoulders. And Morgan Riley, I would batch him in there as well. So obviously it'll help them maybe get over the hump in that way because you have more depth, but I think it's going to fall on the shoulders still of the guys who are here. So maybe go out and spend a little bit less, get some help, fill in a hole that you need to fill in, but maybe not, handcuff yourself for the next 3-4 years with a guy like Brayden Schenn.
Yeah, it's interesting. They obviously, I mean, they're not going to have success without those guys playing well. However, like you mentioned, I mean, he's under contract for 3 more years. It lines up pretty well with the way that the Leafs are kind of structured to win. You have Chris Tanev. I mean, his contract's 6 years, OEL 4 years, but they're going to really start to, we'd assume, fall off after 2 or 3 years. This is their prime years. So if you have the opportunity now to go and win, let's also forget Anthony Solar is under contract next year as well. He's probably going to, and then he's going to get paid, I would assume, a pretty hefty amount. So there's a lot of different things there. And if they think this is their best chance to win, you see here, based on the reported asking price for Brayden Schenn, I'd much rather just get Mikko Rantanen. Now, the problem with this assumption is that you're assuming A, Mikko Rantanen is available, and B, I mean, you're going to have to give up more than a first-round pick for Mikko Rantanen. I would assume it's going to be a first Easton Cowan plus, right? So and he's a pending free agent, but you'd assume the Leafs would have some sort of extension in there in place. But Brayden Schenn at 6.5 by 4 left at 33 years old at a pacing of 17 goals, 47 points, likely cost Minton in a first. And Schenn is fine. They got to lower the price. I'll ask you and I'll ask everybody to leave down below. Would you do Minton and a first round pick? I don't think I would for Brayden Schenn. However, if everybody else is costing him, Scott Laughton alone costs a first, and then all these different things, cap hit 6.5. I mean, you could factor in Brayden Schenn into this lineup and it would look very good. Minton and a first is pricey. That seems like a start of a Mikko Rantanen package, but I think that's what it would take to get Brayden Schenn because he's the captain and all these different things. So this is the real. I think this is going to be what it comes down to. Are they willing to give up, like Elliot Freeman said yesterday, are they willing to give up Minton and a first for Brayden Schenn? I mean, I could see a world that happens if they don't have any other options, but it's interesting.
Yeah, who they're willing to give up, right? Like if it's Fraser Minten, I would be more reluctant. If it's Easton Cowan, maybe I'd be more open to it. That's just my personal thoughts, and I'm curious to see everyone's thoughts in the comments as well. But I would be more open to that, and I think that could be very close to getting it done instead of like Rantanen, where you need probably 3 or 4 other pieces or something like that, right? And obviously they're retaining the salary on that, so it's interesting. We all have to keep in mind too that Rantanen is a high-end player. Like he's another high-end player, like a Matthews, like Marner, stuff like that. Same kind of skill set, a little bit different. He's obviously a bigger body too, but Brayden Schenn brings a lot of other things to the table that you can't really get from higher end players. Sometimes you wish that they would give it to you, especially on the Leafs, but he's going to come in here and do the ugly things, right? Especially in the playoffs, and do the things that the top guys don't want to do, and get to those areas, get to the dirty areas. He's really good on the boards as well. He's won a Stanley Cup. He knows what it takes to win. So, to do it here with the Leafs, I think it would be pretty exciting for him. So it's going to be very interesting to see what Brad Living has up his sleeve over the next couple of days, because, he isn't known to make any crazy big splashes, but it sounds, by all accounts, that they might be pretty in on Brayden Schenn. I mean, the coaching staff always has their fingerprints on this stuff too. They're always having conversations with management. So I'm sure Craig Berube is like, hey, if you're going to go out and get a third line center, I would rather Schenn over Scott Laughton.
Yeah, let us know down below what your thoughts are. A ton of new info dropping. We're going to keep you up to date with all the latest news. So make sure to hit the subscribe button. See you later.